Conquistador is actually the Spanish word for conquer. Now, the conquistadors are skilled officers and soldiers, disciplined with, well, superior tactics and weaponry, and a combination of ability and determination. Essentially, a few hundred Spanish warriors go up against empires of millions. The small Spanish forces defeat very large indigenous armies, driven by their lust for great riches, gold, silver, turquoise, and jade. Now, the most famous of these conquistadors are, of course, Hernan Cortez, who conquers the Aztecs between 1519 and 1521, and Francisco de Montejo, who conquers the Mayans in 1526, and Francisco Pizarro, who conquers the Inca in 1531-1533. Well, these are the most famous, but there's literally dozens and dozens of conquistadors. Now, the Spaniards have the lethal edge of iron and steel, swords, knives, lances. They also have armor and helmets that essentially are formidable defenses against the most powerfully hurled stones. They also have cannon and muskets, gunpowder. Now, these cannon and muskets are limited in battle. They take a long time to reload, but very impressive in demonstrations. They scare the shit out of the Indians. Now, the Indians have soft copper weapons. Their metallurgy is severely limited. They have stone projectiles, obsidian knives, and wooden clubs with stone tips. Now, the Spanish shrewdly manipulate traditional native jealousies. They gain a lot of Indian allies and enlarge their own forces. And there's a reason for that, because the Mayan, Aztec, and Inca are essentially tyrants. If they weren't tyrants, they couldn't have gotten Indian allies so quickly and in such numerous numbers. Now, Spain also has a second important technological advantage. The horse. They managed to launch lightning raids, and the horses are unknown in the New World, and, well, this scares the shit out of the Indians as well. They also have hunting dogs, attack dogs, in the ancient Roman tradition, who are very, very formidable in battle. Then we have a third advantage, which is the introduction of European disease. Indians have no immunity to the common cold or the flu, not to mention many other horrible diseases. And this weakens the indigenous troops at crucial stages in the fighting. There's widespread disorganization among the Indians as they scramble to replace leaders and commanders. Now, the Spanish also have an added incentive, which is the indigenous religions. To the Spanish, this massive human sacrifice, this reptilian art, this skull imagery, is a virtual hell on earth and must be destroyed. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to upset some people, but as brilliant as the Inca, the Maya, and the Aztecs were, I mean, they're very brilliant people in their art, their science, their architecture. They're brilliant, but they're twisted and perverted. Any faith that includes human sacrifice, especially on such a grand scale. For example, the Aztecs would kill as many as 50,000 people during religious celebrations. They would rip the heart out of 50,000 people during the course of a weekend. Well, any religion that involves this is twisted and perverted and needs to be destroyed. Now, a lot of historians, anthropologists, archaeologists don't have the balls to say this, but I will say it. Call it ritual, call it religion, call it what you want. I call it murder. And I can't blame the Spanish for wanting to wipe out this very twisted and perverted faith. Now, there's bloody conflict that goes on for years, and the result is that the Spanish end up with a huge colonial empire in the New World, with Mexico City, known as the Viceroyalty of Spain, Mexico City is the center of this large colonial empire that lasts for, well, roughly 300 years. Now, to the Spanish, the land beyond the Rio Grande is known as the Great Northern Mystery. It's loaded with unexplored regions. And the conquistadors believe that this uncharted terrain contains fabulous golden cities. Now, this belief is sparked by an old Spanish legend of 7 fugitive bishops who escape Moorish occupation of Spain and cross the Atlantic, the unknown seas, and establish 7 cities that are utopian nature, 7 cities of gold in a faraway land. Well, the Spanish believe that these 7 cities of gold are somewhere in this unexplored region beyond the Rio Grande. That's why it's known as the Great Northern Mystery. Now, post-discovery of the New World, rumors circulate that somewhere north of Mexico, in our present-day American Southwest, the 7 cities are located. These rumors are bolstered by the Indians themselves, who speak of fabulous cities of gold and turquoise, the largest city being known as Cibola, Eldorado to the Spanish. Now, these accounts of these fabulous 7 cities quickly traveled to Mexico City. And, well, the Spanish viceroy / governor is, well, very greedy and eager for gold. And he mounts an expedition. This is where the Franciscans enter the picture. Fray Marcos de Naza, who, along with a Moorish slave guide known as Estevancio, well, they lived among the Indians and hear many tales of these opulent cities in the north, our west. So in 1539, this humble Franciscan priest, this ambitious slave, and several hundred Indian servants begin the long trek into the Great Northern Mystery, our west, in search of Eldorado, the 7 cities of gold. Well, 2 weeks into the expedition, a weary Fray Marcos orders Estevancio, the Moorish slave, to scout ahead towards the northern horizon. And several days later, Indians return with a very extravagant message. Estevancio has heard an account of Cibola, the first of the 7 cities of gold. And, well, Fray Marcos, the Franciscan priest's mind becomes filled with fantastic images. Great streets, giant squares, houses, doors of gold, turquoise, and jade. And essentially, this humble priest becomes obsessed with the lure of untold riches. It overtakes the priest, and he rushes towards the destination where Estevancio is. So several days later, Marcos learns of Estevancio's fate. The Moor and the Indians with him are taken prisoner at Cibola. They try to escape and are hunted down and killed. Now, Marcos, despite the dangers involved, is unable to resist the temptation. He has gold fever, and he hurries further northward to see the city with his own eyes. Well, a couple of days later, he comes across a city, and essentially he says, "The Holy Mother of God, it's Eldorado." So he hightails it back to Mexico City and gives an account to the viceroy as to what he's seen and done. Well, the friars' lavish stories ignite plunder lust within Mexico City, New Spain, and in February 1540, the viceroy dispatches a large army to conquer / pacify the great city of Cibola. There's 300 treasure-hungry conquistadors and 1,000 Indian underlings under the leadership of Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, the 30-year-old governor of New Galicia, with Fray Marcos along for the ride as their guide. He's telling them where to go. So after several months of wandering around in the desert, the Coronado expedition reaches its destination. Well, there is indeed a city spread out before them, a Zuni Indian pueblo. That's an impressive adobe village, but a far cry from the Golden City of legend. Now, Coronado, of course in full dress armor, approaches the Zunis, and he essentially tells them to submit to the will of Spain and the will of God. Or, because if you refuse, we're going to make war. We're going to destroy your city. We're going to kill your people. And we're going to make slaves of you and your women. Well, the Zunis, who outnumber the Conquistadors 100 to 1, at least 100 to 1, are very confident, and they refuse. And there's a swift and defiant slew of arrows aimed at the Conquistadors from the Zunis. Well, Coronado responds with ruthless and disciplined deadly force. There's a short, decisive battle, and the Indians flee in terror. They essentially have no defenses against the lances, muskets, swords, and horses of the Conquistadors. So they retreat within their town's walls. Well, Coronado attacks the village. The Zunis are decimated. They lose many, many people. And they are forced to submit to the will of Coronado, Spain, and God. Well, what the Coronado thinks is the will of God. Well, the city, the Conquistadors, ravage the city. It holds no treasure. There's small amounts of gold, silver, jade, and turquoise that's used for religious purposes, but there's no treasure. So Coronado is furious. He's very, very pissed off. And he orders Fray Marcos back to Mexico City in disgrace, bearing a humiliating letter to the Viceroy. Well, the letter tells the Viceroy that Father Marcos is a liar and has not told the truth. Now, to the Spanish, a lie is a major sin. And, well, this Franciscan priest is never looked at in the same light again. Now, Coronado, in the name of Spain and God, continues to explore the great northern mystery, the American Southwest. And his army of conquistadors essentially rapes and pillages its way through what is the future Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Kansas. Coronado and his bunch are the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon. Now, the treasure he seeks eludes him, but Coronado's expedition extends Spanish territory over huge areas of North America. Coronado becomes very disillusioned with the expedition's failure, and when he returns to Mexico, the Viceroy indicts him. But he's acquitted. It's not Coronado's fault if he can't find the 7 cities of gold. All right, now the Conquistadors continue to search the great northern mystery, our American Southwest, for the 7 cities of gold for essentially 200 years. Into the late 18th century, they're still looking for Eldorado, this lure of treasure and quick and easy riches.